If everyone could please quiet down. If you do not have a seat down here, we did open up the balcony, students and faculty. We're going to be in here for a while. If you don't have a seat down here, please head up to the balcony. We're going to ask everybody to please stop talking. We're about to begin. Please put your phones on silent and put them away for the duration of the program so that you can fully focus on what's happening on the front. If everyone could please quiet down. We can stop the music. In just a moment, we are going to begin our program with a video. It's a video that we show every year with images that serve as testimony to the atrocities of the Shoah. Some of those images are difficult to watch. It's really okay to close your eyes or avert them from the screen if it's too painful for you to look at. Just a reminder for the duration of the program to please have your phones completely on silent and away so that you can focus. Please direct your attention to the screen.
Commemorative. It is our great honor to hear from Mrs. Gabriella Major this Yom HaShoah. Mrs. Major and her beloved husband, Dr. William Major, Zichrono Livracha, have been role models to me and my family for over 30 years. Their beautiful family, a number of whom are SAR high school graduates, one of whom is in the audience, have made Torah learning and observance, Medinat Yisrael, and the strength of the Jewish people their life's mission. Last week at our Sadarim we said, Bechol dor v'dor, chayav adam lerod et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa mitzrayim. Remembering and learning from the past are integral to who we are as Jews. While it can be painful, the past fortifies us, inspires us, and serves as a call to action. Mrs. Major has been sharing her story for years to ensure we and others never forget. She has been an integral part of campaigns to stop hate and stop Holocaust denial. She just told me this morning she was filmed by NBC News today, and you can watch her on the 5 o'clock news tonight. As you will soon see and hear, Mrs. Major exudes warmth, wisdom, love, and strength. And as you can imagine, the memories are painful and hard to share, but this is part of Mrs. Major's and our mission. As you are our last generation to hear directly from survivors of the Shoah, you are now responsible to bear witness. Remember and share Mrs. Major's story of loss, of bitachon, which is a quality Rabbi Hartstock referred to last week, strength and resilience. Please listen closely and carefully to her story. Please never forget. And as we continue to do during this very challenging present, make sure we take action to make sure that never again is now. I'll bring the chair.
Light, because I need to see your faces. I am so excited and happy to be here with you. Yes, I have 8 grandchildren, Beli and Hara, who are, I more, but Beli and Hara, they are SAR graduates. I need an applause. And they all wanted to be here. So they love SAR, I love SAR. Looking out, it's so wonderful to see such gorgeous faces. So let's see where we begin. First of all, I want to make sure that we're on the same page as far as time frame. Time frame for me, as far as the Shoah is going. The Holocaust started, right, in 1939. 1938 was Kristallnacht, and 1939, do I need this? Do I need this? I do, okay. All right. Because when I sit down, I'm going to sit down in a little while. Okay. All right. Do I have to hold this? Okay. So 1939, Hitler invaded Poland, first country. So picture this. 5 years later, in 1944, with their last-ditch effort, because they were losing the war, they invaded Hungary. And I am from Hungary, Debrecen, Hungary. And I was 2 years old. You know what? The older I'm getting, the more I have a little 2-year-old Gigi, and one that's gonna be 2-year-old, and I can't even imagine how I could go through what I did. But thank God, it's a miracle, big one. Okay, so it's also a little, I'm gonna talk about right now, freshman year, not freshman, sophomore, Ilana Spivak, one of my grandchildren. We were doing together a poetry project because I love poetry. And so there was this amazing African-American young woman who had so many challenges, and she overcame them all. Just one sec. So Ilana said, Anna, you've got to write a poem about the Holocaust. And I said, I'm not a good poet. She says, you know what? Just the way you tell me, just do it. And right then and there, I sat down, and I don't know what happened, but it just flew out of me. So with your permission, I am going to recite the poem. We shall overcome. In cattle cars, we were herded and packed. Sobs of my precious little baby cracked. Hush, my baby, don't cry, Mama is close by. With parched lips, no air to breathe, squeezed together like sardines, frightened eyes, staring into space. Those horrific creatures are taking us to what place? They want to kill us and disappear from the face of the earth. They treat us with no worth. Remember, we are the chosen people. We shall overcome. Her beautiful locks were shaven, tiny in stature, but already brave, demanding her equal share. Torn in rags, on freezing rooftops, Mama piled bricks. Screaming and yelling, the SS guards got their kicks. Remember, we are the chosen people. We shall overcome. With fever, my baby is burning. To the hospital I'm turning. I pray, get her well. Our story I must tell. Waiting for our liberators to arrive. To the sea they wanted us to drive. Behold, a piece of chocolate for my baby. Please, give us a small ride, maybe. We must hold out. Our strength is fading, but our daddy must be waiting. Unshaven, bone skinny, broken-hearted, he embraced us, never again to be parted. Remember, we are the chosen people. We shall overcome. From the ashes, we will build. We will build. We shall overcome. Okay. So, let's get back to where we are. So I told you, this is a little too high. Can't they see me? Okay. So as I said, it was actually March 19th, 1944, when we were invaded. And so immediately, like 1, 2, 3, they were so efficient, the Germans. They came to our homes, raided our homes, day after day, to make sure that they took everything of value. They even pulled off my mother's wedding band, gold wedding band. They took away our radio, etc. It was Eichmann. Adolf Eichmann was in charge. By the way, I saw the document that they drew up at the Wannsee Conference in 1941 on which for each country they wrote down how many Jews they were going to kill. For Hungary, it was 600,000 Jews. Well, they were able to kill 500, 500,000. So immediately, I'm from the town or the city of Debrecen. Immediately, they erected 2 ghettos. Now, what does this mean? It meant that we lived outside of the ghetto, so we had to come in, and those who lived within the circumference of the ghetto, they could stay where they were. This meant that now we were going to be 9 to 10 people in one room. My mother could only bring a few little things. She brought for me my favorite doll and my potty. Don't laugh. I was toilet trained at 15 months. But she was so smart, she realized, you know what, this is not going to be a hygienic place, I am sure. Before I forget, my father was already drafted 6 months before into what they called the workers' army. That was a deceitful term. It was forced labor camp. So we didn't see my father already for quite some time. So just imagine 9 to 10 people in a room. I know you've seen, unfortunately, we saw those pictures too. I can't even look anymore. Because, as I said, the older I get, the less I can comprehend what really happened. But we'll get back to that later. So, we are in the ghetto. In the room, there's maybe one bed, maybe a chair, whatever. We're squeezed together already. There's hardly anything to eat. One piece of bread, some watery soup. And instead of coffee, it looked like coffee, they made it out of the plant chicory. I'm wondering, you most likely are thinking, tell me, just tell me, how could she remember all this stuff if she was only 2 years old? And if that's what you're thinking, you are right. I only have a few things in my memory bank. The rest, I kind of sewed it together from stories after the war from my parents, and also from survivors who survived in the same place. It's just heavy, I wanted to. It's okay. Yeah, just a little. Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, they came to visit, and immediately they talked about what had happened. And I was the only child. And I was, I always eavesdropped. I wanted to know everything. I still do. So, 6 weeks, we're there. The guards are coming left and right, and whenever they feel like it, they just hit us. And then we have to go to a worse place, another ghetto. Here, there's only an outhouse. You know what an outhouse is. You read it in books, right? So thank goodness for that potty. My mother is working outside on rooftops, no matter how the weather is, especially when the winter came. No, I made a mistake, because that happened later. Okay, we're getting there. So now they opened the insane asylum nearby, and the mentally ill patients were amongst us. We were scared of them, and they were scared of us. And then one day, they're screaming, the guards are screaming, "Schnell!" Some of you might know the word. Fast, quick, everything had to be done quickly. Get on the trains. The trains, we know what trains look like. These were cattle cars. Cattle cars carry animals, right? So now, do we know what's going to happen to us? Do we have any idea? What do you think? It's 5 years. The war is raging for 5 years. Well, we heard from kind of through the grapevine. Jews from Poland, Polish Jews, who had already been in several camps, concentration camps. They fled to Hungary, thinking that Hungary is going to be fine because, it's already, the war is raging. They probably are not going to get there. Well, so they were telling Jews, but they were the border towns, and we were kind of in the middle of Hungary. They were telling them, terrible things are happening. They're murdering the Jews. They're in concentration camps. Horrible stuff. But, I think of this because why didn't we really know? Because, when you play telephone when you were very young, and one person says something here, and then by the time the 10th person hears it, it's something else. And besides, did we want to believe it? Mm-mm. Who wanted to believe this? We all thought it's just a nightmare. It's going to end. So now we're in the cattle cars. No windows, there's no air. 3 days, no air to breathe, nothing to eat, nothing to drink. There's no bathroom, there's no toilet, so there is a pail for that purpose. So the stench is incredible. So we arrive. Now you need to know that from Hungary, I told you 500,000, most of the Jews were just quickly taken and from the cattle cars right into the concentration camps, mostly to Auschwitz. Well, obviously, it wasn't Auschwitz. They opened the gates, and we are in a concentration camp called Strasshof. Can you all say Strasshof? Strasshof. It's near beautiful Vienna, Austria. So we arrive. And I forgot to tell you that it was my mother and my father's mother, my grandmother, with us. By the way, my father could have had my mother and me hidden by one of his farmers. But my mother said to my grandmother, wherever we go together. I know you're going to remember this soon. We're going to read Megillat Ruth. And so we were there. Immediately we had to strip naked. They shaved our heads. And we had to exercise, stand erect, even my 80-year-old grandmother. So what happened there? So my mother, I started saying it, my mother had to work on rooftops, piling bricks, as I told you in the poem. She was gone all day. Who took care of me? After all, by now I'm 2.5, not even. Well, I took care of me. There were people there, there were old people. Well, who stayed? So either they were old, unable to work, or too young. Well, I'm the youngest. You can't be much younger. But there are these 9, 10, 11, maybe 12-year-old boys. They're too young. But if they were 13 and big, they would have had to work outside. Now, I had problems with these boys, this little pipsqueak. Why? Because you see, in order to get the meager food, which was again a piece of bread, stale, this horrible soup, and the chicory coffee, you had to have an escort, a voucher, and you had to stand in line to get this food. So I had to stand in line, and I had the escort in my hand. And what do you think these boys wanted? They wanted to get my escort. Why? Because they were starving. Everybody was starving. That was probably one of the biggest problems. And so they never got my escort because I advocated for me. I had a big mouth. You have to be careful with that later on. But so there was one other memory. There was this woman, I think she was old. I remember something that she was sitting on a chair. I must have been really petrified. And she had this pocket knife with the blade out, pointing at me. Now I know that she really didn't want to harm me. It was for self-defense from those horrible guards who came around, and whenever they felt like it, they hit us with their sticks, with their clubs. So now, suddenly, I became very sick. You know, all the illnesses that you are inoculated for when you're little, what is it, measles, mumps, and whooping cough. I got all of them, and I had very high fever. My mother, I don't know how she did it, but she got me into this hospital nearby. I had this, as I said, high fever. They didn't know whether I was going to live or die for 6 weeks, really. And there, too, I was alone. I mean, there were people there. Knowing myself, I probably was talking to them. After 6 weeks, somehow, I got well enough that my mother was able to take me back to the concentration camp. Fast forward. In May, suddenly they announce, we are liberated. What does this mean? I mean, we know what the word means, but what are we going to do? My mother has rags on her. We have nothing, not 1 penny. I forgot to tell you, she used to go to the garbage and check to see if she could find some potato peel, potato skin, an onion. Once a farmer gave her a little piece of butter. Well, this time, she again was resourceful. My mother was an incredible woman, courageous, 24 years old. She found in the garbage, next to the garbage, this broken carriage. I mean broken. It had 3 wheels instead of 4. They would never throw out something that was, especially during the war, that was not broken. So she put baby, and the 2 things, what were they? The 2 things that we were able to take to the ghetto? Exactly, the doll and the potty. They survived. And so she started to hitchhike. And we got a little ride here, a little ride there, and then suddenly she saw this big caravan with Russian, the former Soviet Union, Russian soldiers. And she said, please, give us a ride. And then that's when she asked for the little piece of chocolate, because she heard that the Russian soldiers give chocolate to little kids. But they only took us for a ride. We had a long way to go to Hungary, back to Hungary. Now, she had no map.
We didn't have anything to tell us how to go. I don't know how she did it, but she finally did get to Hungary. As a matter of fact, she got to Budapest, where she remembered. She was there once. My father's, one of his brothers, lived in Budapest, and she remembered the address. Not like today, we don't remember anything. Everything is on the phone. And so we arrived there. He was also in a forced labor camp, but he already got out 2 days before. And his wife and small child, they were hidden. Now there's a difference between hiding and hidden. And so they had a little semblance of kind of normalcy. So they were so happy to have us. And we had this first lunch or dinner, a dairy one. And my mother was very worried because after the war, you know, since we were starving all the time, our stomach shrank. And it was very dangerous. And a lot of people got very ill. Some people actually died when they ate after the war. So I'm going to tell you something sweet. So my dessert was my all-time favorite, a Napoleon, but not the Parve one, the one that has the real custard. I mean real. And so she said, Gabriella, you're going to have this later, after your nap, okay? And so she put me down in a borrowed crib next door. And then she came back when she thought I was up, and she checked on the Napoleon, and it was nowhere. Gabriella, what happened? What's going on here? I was half asleep. She sees that the crib is full of cream. What do you think happened? What do you think happened, anyone? What could I have done? You don't know this time because I forgot it. I left out a very important point. Unfortunately, because people were starving in the concentration camp, people were stealing from each other. And so we didn't have any beds. You know, for that purpose, there was, you know, just a concrete floor and some burlap on it with a little hay. And so I used to try to hide our food under my head. So getting back to the Napoleon, what happened to the Napoleon? The same fate. Now I had a pillow, so I hid it under the pillow. This is a very sweet story, but a very sad one. I didn't even trust my mother. My father, what's going on here? My father, we didn't know anything about him. Suddenly we found out that thank God he survived. And 2 days later, he came. And so, I told you in the poem, I couldn't recognize him. Well, I hadn't seen him since I was 1.5. He was just, you know, like, unfortunately, we see homeless people. He looked terrible, and I couldn't hug him for 6 months. Okay, so what's going to happen now? Where do we want to go? Any idea? What do we need to do? I mean, we can't stay there. We lived in Debrecen, right? This is Budapest. Well, we wanted to go home. Wanted to go home to find out who's alive from our family, and that's when we found out the terrible news, little by little. Now, going back to your home was not so simple. First of all, everywhere. In Poland especially, I learned, but in Hungary too. Whenever survivors came back, they said to them, "What are you doing here? This is not your home. You were not supposed to come back." We were lucky. The people who were in our home were human beings. And they said to us, "This is your home." And so my father shared half and half whatever we still had there. And we started to build from the ashes. I remember asking my mother, how do you do it? My grandparents were killed and all the others. How do you do it? And always the answer was, this is a mass tragedy. And we just have to go on. And we have you. They had to go on. And so this is now 1945, okay, you with me? Between 1945 and 1946, a new government is going to come into this country because the Russians liberated us and liberated a number of countries, and so they're going to be, the oppressor and what we hear all the time now. We're going to be part of the Soviet Union. They're going to govern us together with our government. And so, what happens? My father wanted to reclaim his business. And for 2 minutes in the beginning, when we came back, he did. But then he had to give it up to the government because that's what happened. They nationalized all private businesses. So now he has to find a job. And my mother, I told you she was brilliant. She was valedictorian of her high school in Hungary. But never mind, she wanted to go to medical school, but she couldn't get into university because of what they called numerus clausus, the quota system. Jews were not allowed to go to university. So this was one good thing in communism. After the war, for some reason, she was able to go to university. She wanted to go to medical school, but that was not going to happen. I mean, she had this child, she had to, really get going and get a diploma and get a profession so she could work. And she did, and she was amazing. And my father also. He was in the grain business before, and so he got a position in that field. Okay, and what about me? So I started school only at age 6. I was not behind. It just was one of those things. And the first 3 months, it was a Jewish school. We were so happy. But after that, they nationalized, they closed the school. So I went to a public school, and I was the only Jewish kid. The only one. So, well, how does that affect you? Well, first of all, I call it a schizoid life today because I was one person at home and one person outside, in school and everywhere. But I was never told that I had to do that. It was just one of those things that you just knew that you had to do. I couldn't invite I had friends. I did have friends. I adjusted very well. And so I had 3 great friends. We never talked about religion. The only thing that did happen is when they had Christmas, I went to her house to help her trim her tree. But I never talked about my Shabbos. I never talked about Pesach, Rosh Hashanah, etc. I don't even know how we did it, to tell you the truth. How we stayed observant. And how did I learn anything? as far as Hebrew is concerned? Well, my mother taught me how to daven. I had to practice, and there was no regular shul. For the holidays, we went to a shtibel, and my father was the chazan. Well, that's a whole other story. He had a gorgeous voice. He studied voice in Germany for 4 years. He wanted to be an opera singer, but his father told him, that was great. I'm so glad you were able to do it, but now you come back and to reality. However, that wonderful voice did help him later on, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. So here we are. I do very well in school. I'm not bragging, but I just want you to know that was part of me. And 1956 comes around. I just finished 8th grade. And I'm all excited because I'm going to go to a high school where they're going to have some Jewish kids. It's going to be... Anybody was in Hungary ever? Anybody? Okay. So Budapest is Buda and Pest, and in between there are the bridges, and we lived on the Buda side, which was the more, more trees and more country-like. But I am going to go to this school, and I'm excited. Well, right next door to us, the Hungarian Revolution broke out. This meant what they call freedom fighters. They wanted to overthrow the government. They wanted to kick the Russians out. So this sounds good. You probably say, hey, you're going to be so happy. It's not going to be communism anymore. Just the opposite. Suddenly, terrible anti-Semitism begins to rage. In small towns, they start killing people and also beating Jews. And my father, who became a manager, he felt it also in his place of work. Okay, fast forward. I find out that many, many people, not just Jews, escaped from Hungary during this time because the borders were open. And so I go to my father. He's constantly listening to Radio Free Europe. We had a shortwave radio, Voice of America, and Call Yisrael. And I'm asking him, why are you doing this? He says, we need to know. We need to know what's going on. I said, I'll tell you what's going on. People are leaving. We have to escape. And you know what I told him? If you want me, this is age 14, if you want me to marry a Jewish boy, and if you want me to be able to go to medical school, we really need to get out. Because I'm afraid, even though I'm going to continue to work very hard and I will have great, good grades, but I don't know with my resume. Now, let me tell you about this resume. I forgot to talk about that. A 14-year-old doesn't have a resume, I know. But you have a chart in school, right? Everybody has a chart. And in that chart, it was stated, Žid, for Jew. And next to it, a Russian word for landowner, kulak. Nobody else had anything like that. Okay? It didn't say in the other kids' charts, Christian and whatever. So this particular chart was sent also to the high school. And then for my whole life, every year, it was going to accompany me. So I knew that I might have a problem. So I kept on persuading and persuading. My mother absolutely didn't want to hear about it because finally we had some normalcy. And she had a profession in her hand. So finally, I convinced him. But at that point already, the borders were not open. The Russians were reflecting the borders. And if they caught you, you had to go to prison. All right, so now he arranges, because our cousins who got through, they called us, all the phones were bugged. So they said, you know, use the same tailor. It's very good. In other words, use the same guide to take you across. He did everything. He paid a lot. We got 9.5 hours later, and by the way, it was Friday all day. I'm going to tell you guys because this means something to you. He went to the rabbi, to the main rabbi or rebbe, whatever, and asked him, told him that we had to leave. What should he do? It's going to be Shabbos. He said, Pekuach Nefesh, you have to leave yesterday. So we did. When we got there to the border, they didn't want to take us across. That's a whole other story. It's too long. Finally, we started going, and this was 3 days after terrible snow, mud, through the fields. 9.5 hours through the fields. I lost my shoe. I found my shoe. I didn't have boots on. And so, finally, we arrived. We arrived at the border, the Austrian border. And you know what? I thought that I won the lotto. A pickup truck takes us to this place like a camp. That's where all the refugees had to come. And then somehow we had to get out of there too. But you know what? I had a cup of cocoa, 2:30 in the morning, and a piece of good bread, and I thought this was amazing. You see, I was very mature in some ways, but immature. I did not know what it meant to be an immigrant. So what's going to be now? So we got some help from my uncle, the same one where we stayed in Budapest, because he happened to be already in Vienna. And eventually the Hayas helped us, and eventually we got a visa to come to America. That was also, we were there for 6 weeks. So now what's going to happen? Okay, there are no marketable skills for my parents. None of us speaks English. It's a tough time. But my parents were amazing. They never complained. So first they worked in factories. My mother 3 months in a tie factory, my father longer. And finally said, there used to be an ad. Maybe you remember it, Gloria. I got my job through the New York Times. And so my mother went and looked, and she got a file clerk position. And that was great because she said, I have to use my brain. And 2 years later, she became a supervisor. That's my mother. And my father went into business. The business also failed. And eventually, his voice. He worked for a shul for 17 years. He did everything. He was also the chazan. Okay, now fast forward. What about me? After all, this is my testimony. What did I do? I went to this big high school, still exists. I couldn't go to Ramaz, unfortunately, even though it was very close by, because I didn't have the foundation. I mean, you know, the fact that I knew how to daven, that was not enough. So I went to Julia Richmond High School. In those days, it was an all-girls school, 3,000 kids, you can imagine. And this, you know, they called the immigrants greener, you know, like you don't speak the language. But within 6 months, a lot of willpower, I got there. I wasn't fantastic, but I got there. And then I got into the honor school. So fast forward, I graduate. and I did very well, thank God. And now I'm going to go to Queens College. And during the summer, I met my husband. Now, if you ever heard a rush, well, I met him on August 3rd. We got engaged on September 12th, and this was not a Hasidic business, okay? So, and then we got married on January 22nd during intercession, because we had to fit it in. And that's the time we had our honeymoon too, that intercession. And during that intercession, I also I had to go and now transfer from Queens College, because that was too far, to Hunter College. I'm a Hunter graduate, BA and MA. And so, as they say, the rest is history. But no, I have to tell you. So it's amazing. Thank God. B'li Ain Hara. I have a big family, wonderful children, amazing grandchildren, and amazing Gigi's. I usually say, and I'm not going to say that this time, I always say it's my vengeance, but to the Holocaust. I just will say that that is the greatest blessing that one could have. But I was going to start I don't know how I went off the wrong track. I was going to first say, at the Seder, we ask, why is this night different from all other nights? And now I'm going to ask, why is this Yom HaShoah different from all other Yom HaShoahs? All the time, it's very hard for me. And very hard for all survivors. But this time it's, where are we? When I've been speaking to students for 10 years, I always tell them, and at the Museum of Jewish Heritage, I'm a docent, and I always tell them, you really have to know about the Holocaust. And, because history could repeat itself. And what happened? History is repeating itself. It's impossible, but I guess it's like the embers of the fire. They were there, and then in every generation, door by door, we have those horrible persons or people. So, and now I've said this over and over again, I have a pain. I have a pain because I have two gorgeous grandchildren. One is here at Columbia University. I was so excited when she got into the School of Social Work at Columbia. And I have my William Schwartz, maybe somebody knows him. He is a freshman. And it's all hell. So, but how do I think? Maybe you'll ask me, maybe it's time for questions, right?
You can finish what you're saying.
Well, the thing is this. I will have some messages. So maybe we'll do questions first, and I'll do my messages after, okay? Any question?
If anyone has a question, you can raise your hands and I'll come around with the microphone. We have time for 2 or 3 questions.
I guess I told you everything, and I explained everything. I talked too long. Well, all right, maybe when I give you my messages, maybe then you'll have a question. So how do we all of us, and especially you, because it's your future now, how do we confront all of this? And I have to really have a positive attitude, number one, because no, this is not the same, even though sometimes it does appear like Germany in the 30s, which I was not there, but of course we know about it. But you know, it's a different time. We're not going to be silent. We are not silent right now. You heard, I am going to be on channel NBC News at 5 o'clock. And I had been on ABC News at 7 o'clock. Why? Because I am going to fight my way. And you will also. You'll do the same thing your way. There are many different ways. And first of all, yes, we have real difficult time. We have war in Israel. But we have Israel, okay? My husband, Willie Zichron Livracha, said, had we had Israel at the time of the Holocaust, we would not have lost. We would have lost a lot, but we would not have lost 6 million. And he was right. And I know that together, one of the most important things that I feel is that all of us Jews, I don't care what anybody does or doesn't, but we are Jews. Every single Jew who is, we may have differences sometimes in our ways of thinking, but we are together. We're united. And if we are united, we are strong. And yes, so I write every single day. AIPAC sends out, emails, and it's telling us what we are right now demanding and what we are pushing for. And so, you need to act. So I act. I sign, I read it all, I send emails to the Congress people, to the senators, to the president. Does he want to hear me? No, but the more I do this, the more people do this, numbers do matter. And so I also call. Sometimes they pick it up, sometimes they don't. I also got rid of the New York Times because their biased behavior, I can't stand it. So two months after the war had started, I finally, because I just, we had gotten rid of it before. During the Intifada, Rabbi Luxstein, my rabbi, told us we have to get rid of it, and we did. But this time, I could not stand it. I said, I can't. And when I called them, I told them to write down every single word that I'm telling them why I'm terminating the paper. And I said, please read it back to me and put it into the computer. Okay? I know nobody cares. But you know what? I needed it. I needed it. And so there are, I know you're doing a lot of things. All the chesed that you guys are doing, and so much chesed has been done since October 7th, all over, in every borough, every school, every day school, and others as well, and shuls. And so I know that we are fighting. We are not going to just stay silent. Our actions speak louder than words. And so I just want to encourage you guys to have emunah. Listen, if I can do it at my age, you could do it. And I know it's not easy. I know right now it's really hard. And actually, I feel so horrible because you had to go through the pandemic, and that was horrible, right? And now this, but you're going to do it. You're going to go after your goals. You're going to do well in school. And you know what? It doesn't matter anymore that you have to be in the Ivy League schools. Because guess what? It doesn't matter. Get your education. You know what? That's one thing I can tell you. Knowledge is power. No one can take away the education. No one. And you are getting an amazing education. Double curriculum, SAR, come on. So I know, and I pray at the same time. Prayer is important too. I say to him every day, and we can all do that. I know that you're going to do fine. We're all going to be together in this. And please God, I hope that somehow some of the people, you know what, what's his name? Richie Torres. Richie Torres. He spoke. I love him. He spoke at KJ, and I tell you, and also for UJ, I'm involved in UJ. I have a lot of different little places where I am also fighting for all of this. You know what? He's amazing. You can find him, listen to him. There are many more people who are with us than we think. And so we just have to let them know. I mean, right now, forget it. No, I'm not supposed to talk politics, so I'm not going there. I just want to tell you that every single one of you is a gem, and we're going to do okay. And thank you.
Can all stand?
I want to get up. I'm having a hard time.
Can all stand up to please give Ms. Major the round of applause that she deserves, and thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak to us in person.
Thank you guys. I forgot to tell them.
We're going to invite the choir to come up on the stage. Oh, Ms. Major has one more thing she'd like to add.
To tell you that loving each other as people, every single one of you, you know, is one of the most important things in all of this. Where do I go?
It's right here.
Right here? Okay. Now it got so dark, guys. Why do you make it so dark? Oh, because of the program.
Ki שכחנו, אוי נא תשכחנו. ובכל זאת ובכל זאת שמך לא שכחנו, ובכל זאת לא שכחנו, נא תשכחנו. ובכל זאת, ובכל זאת, ובכל זאת, שמך לא שכחנו, ובכל זאת, שמך לא שכחנו, אוי נא
Each year, we ask our students and faculty members to light a candle in memory of a family member who perished in the Shoah. We will be lighting from a candelabra made and donated to SAR High School by Milton Oring. Milton Oring, who passed away last year, was a Holocaust survivor. His granddaughter, Hadar, is a current senior, and his granddaughter, Geffen, is an SAR High School graduate. Oring described the meaning behind his candelabra as follows. It is made of stainless steel and candle cups of brass. The candelabra has a Jewish star at its base in the design of armbands that residents of the Warsaw Ghetto had to wear. There are 6 vertical posts, a model of the typical concrete posts that surrounded Auschwitz. Electrified with wires were attached to these posts to prevent escape. A crematorium furnace with 2 doors, a post on which hangings were performed. The cross has a dual symbolism. It reflects the times in Jewish history when Jews were persecuted in the name of that symbol, but also reflects that there were many righteous Gentiles who saved Jews during the Holocaust. One half of the lightning bolt symbol that Nazi SS members wore. An arm raised in defiance, except for the last digit, the number engraved on the arm of Elie Wiesels. Wiesel was alive at the time the piece was created. I will now call up the students and faculty members who will be lighting candles in memory of their family. Aaron Birian.
I'm lighting this candle in memory of my great-grandmother, Matilda Brandstein, Mato Bat Yisrael Natan. She was born on May 19, 1906 in Siget, Hungary, and was one of 10 children, 8 girls and 2 boys. Her maiden name was Bruckstein, and she came from a prominent family. She had 2 sons, my grandfather Andrew and my great-uncle Tibby. She was beautiful, a great cook, very involved in her kids' education, and fearless in defending her family. She was a role model for giving kibbud av v'em. Upon arrival at Auschwitz-Birkenau on June 2, 1944, she was murdered together with her father and uncle. She was 38 years old. Yehi Zercha Baruch.
Max Wiener.
This is a story about my great-grandmother, Toby Neiman, who, in 1944, was taken from her village in Transylvania, along with her mother, Etka, and her 3-year-old son, Chaim Lev, to a ghetto for 6 weeks. They were then put on cattle cars without food or water and arrived in Auschwitz 3 days later. They were lined up, leading up to Dr. Joseph Mengele, who would decide whether they would live or die. She was holding her 3-year-old son in her arms, and as she moved up the line, others constantly told her to give her son to her old mother, as anyone who was found holding a child would be automatically sent to the gas chambers. You know, they didn't want to create a scene, they said. And she did not want to. It's I imagine one of the hardest choices she ever had to make, to part with her child for, as she knows, forever. But right as she reached the front of the line, she decided to do what others told her and gave her child to her mother. She was sent to the left to work, and her mother and son were sent to the right to the gas chambers. That was the last that she ever saw them. She would go on to survive the war. I light this candle in memory of her mother Etka and her son Chaim Lev. Yehi Zacharim Baruch.
May Rav and Rinat Kramer Richard.
This is a picture of our great-great-grandparents, Nathan and Clara Summer. They, like all my great-great-grandparents on my dad's side of the family, perished in the Holocaust. Nathan and Clara were from Frankfurt, Germany. Nathan owned a butcher and grocery store. They were sent to Rationstadt concentration camp in August 1942. It was not a death camp. It was a camp where they filmed many propaganda films. In order to convince the world that the camps were a positive thing, they kept the children healthy but starved the older prisoners.
Nathan died at the camp on September 6, 1942, and Claire died on June 1, 1943. They had 3 children, including my great-grandmother, Hetty Richard. Hetty and her brother Louis survived by going from Frankfurt to Paris to Lisbon and then America. Their sister, my great-aunt Alice, was murdered at Auschwitz in 1942. We light these candles in memory of our great-great-grandparents and their relatives who perished in the Shoah. Yehi Zechron Baruch.
Rachel Mordler Green.
Tony Brandwein, who my second middle name, Tova, is after, was born August 27, 1913, in Zwickau, Germany, to Mendel and Minna Brandwein. She had 2 sisters, Elsa and Erna, my great-grandmother. Tony married Sigmund Hussmann, and at 24, Tony had a son, Jacob, or more commonly known as Jack. He, too, was born in Zwickau, Germany, on August 27, 1937. All of the names you just heard, Tony, Mendel, Minna, Elsa, Sigmund, Jack, died during the Holocaust. All of my grandfather's maternal family was murdered at the hands of the Nazis. I light this candle in their memory. Yehi Zerachem Baruch.
Jason Kwawasser.
Cecilia Lily Karpelas was born in Vienna, Austria on January 21, 1919, the eldest of 2 daughters. In the late 1930s in Vienna, she became engaged to my great-grandfather, Erich Scheiber. The couple would have forever remained in their beloved city and homeland, but due to the Anschluss, the Nazi invasion of Austria, they quickly had to arrange other plans. They planned to board the last boat that the Nazis allowed to leave Vienna, the SS Liesel, in May 1939, a vessel that my great-grandfather, Lily's sister and brother-in-law, and countless other family members boarded as a last effort to escape the Nazis. Lily was unable to get to the boat in time. She managed to escape to Budapest, Hungary. Lily was transported from Budapest to Auschwitz in the summer of 1944 with the rest of the Hungarian Jews. and was again transported from Auschwitz to Stutthof on August 16, 1944. She perished in Stutthof on November 20th, 1944, due to cardiac issues and overall exhaustion of her body. She was only 25. I light this candle in the memory of my great-grandfather's fiancée, Yehi Zichro Baruch.
Dr. Jacobowitz.
This is a picture of my beloved Bubby and Zadie, Rachalea and Avram Jacobowitz, Aleim HaShalom, both of whom survived the Holocaust. My Zadie, who survived by working in a forced labor camp, escaping from several near-death scenarios and then in hiding. His wife, Peril Jacobowitz, and 5-year-old daughter, Yehudit, were murdered in Treblinka along with his mother and sister. My Bubby escaped the Warsaw Ghetto and survived by disguising herself as a Polish peasant and working as a farmhand, moving from place to place throughout the war. Her father, Reb Aryeh Leib, and his wife Frima, her brothers Herschel and Avram Yitzchak, and her sisters Fradela and Pekela were murdered by the Nazis in the ghetto and Treblinka. I light this candle in their memory. Yehi Zichram Baruch.
Please rise for the recitation of names, followed by the Kel Malay. From the Newman-Schraeg family, Malka Scheindel Newman, Adel Newman, Hensha Newman, Sarah Malka Goldblum, Moshe Alta Goldblum, Leah Razel Zelkovitz, Daniel Zelkovitz, Yehuda Kupfer, Bracha Kupfer, all from Poland. From the Orgel family, Pinchas ben Natan Cohen, Malka bat Avram Meir, Chaim ben Pinchas, Fadel bas Pinchas. From the Perelman-Schneider family, Pinchas Kandelschein, age 2. From Poland, Shmuel Perelman, Laser and Gittel Tenzer. From the Radinsky-Rosenberg family, Moshe Radinsky. From the Rosen family, Siegfried, Sechel, Pinchas Zweig, Mendel Zweig, Frimet Malka Zweig, Tova Gittel Zweig. From the Rosen family, Esther Engelstein Glatz, Liebe Nachem Glatz, Rachel, Dina, and David Glatz, Yocheved and Zusha Engelschein, Feivel Schrager Engelschein, Dobe Engelschein, Aaron Engelschein, Chaisar Engelschein, Leah Engelschein, Leah Engelschein, Meyer Engelschein, Mariasha, Chaya, Chaim, and Shmuel Engelschein, Yitzchak Chefetz, Razel Chefetz, Chaya Rachel Chefetz Weinstein, Herschel Weinstein. From the Rosenberg family, Chaim Rosenberg, Chanalei Rosenberg, Yitzhak Mordechai Rosenberg, Pesach Eliyahu Rosenberg, Yachmiel Moshe Rosenberg, Yaakov Avram Rosenberg, Hadassah Dvoah Rosenberg, Yari Yisachar Rosenberg, Yehoshua Rosenberg, Zcharia Kayam Rosenberg, Johanna Meyer, Kurt Meyer, Fritz Meyer, Resha Meyer, Hedwig Bloch, Herman Bloch, Marguerite Bloch. From the Rosensaft family, the entire Farkas family. From the Rubenstein Hachstadt family, Zisha Klein, Elka Klein, Yisrael Lulu Klein. From the Nyman and Franks family, Moritz Newman, Paul Funk, Sally Funk, Dora Brand Funk, Selma Funk, all from Germany. Yehi Zichram Baruch, please remain standing. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Ba'miromim Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Al Kanfei HaShechina B'malos Kedoshim Uteorim Kizohar Kiyamirim Umasirim Linishmos Shisha Million yonei achenu v'nei Yisrael, anoshim, nashim, yiladim v'yilados, shenehergu, shenishchatu, shenisrafu, shenechneku, shenitbeu, v'shenikberu chayim, bidei hanatzim v'ozreihem, yamach shemam, umasru es nafsham, al kedushas Hashem, ba'avur shanu mas mispalalim lilui nishmoseyem, Lachein Baal Rachamim, Yastirem B'Seiser Knafav Liolamim, B'Yitzror Achayim Es Nishmoseyem, B'Gan Eden Menuchasam, Adonai Hu Nachalasam, V'Yanuchu V'Shalom Al Mishkavam, V'nomar Amen. Please remain standing for the sounding of the siren, followed by a tikva.
Express our gratitude to Mrs. Major for sharing her powerful story. She will be around after to answer questions. We want to thank the choir for their moving performance, the students who highlighted their family members, and the programming council for creating an impactful visual display around the school to set today's tone. If you haven't yet noticed, up by the Beit Midrash and in front of the auditorium hangs posters from Yad Vashem depicting Jewish life in the mid-1940s. On the monitors, you will find survivor testimonials, images from the Shoah, names of victims who perished in towns that were destroyed. As we transition to lunch, let us do so respectfully, remembering Ms. Major's story and carrying today's somber atmosphere with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for one honor. It's great for generations.